By the way, Adriana, you're not a gambler, right?
I'm not a big gambler. I'm afraid to break the seal because I might actually like it.
Yeah. No, I'm not a gambler either, but most Americans, they love to gamble. And by the way, I'm going to go over here and give you a little layout on a very particular development in the world of gambling. So,
please do.
In the land of the free, you can already gamble on just about anything. Celebrity deaths, aliens, the next pope. It's even possible, believe it or not, to gamble on the end of the world, though I'm a little bit unclear on how you get paid out on that bet. But basically, if you can think about it, you can gamble on it, with one big exception: elections. You are not currently allowed to bet on American elections, but right now, believe it or not, in the middle of this election season, any day, in fact, it might become legal to bet money on who you think is going to win in November. I'll say that again even more clearly. The era of betting on American politics is on our doorstep. And I just have to ask, is this the dumbest thing a democracy has ever done to itself? I mean, let's think about it. Election gambling has been technically banned since the 1930s, but now there's this booming offshore market. It includes hundreds of millions of dollars in bets already on the Trump-Harris race right now. And while officially it is off limits to Americans, Americans have a tendency to find a way, and this is very, very popular. There are also multiple American companies fighting to legalize election betting, and they're winning. Earlier this month, one of those companies, Kalshi, got a judge to agree that the federal government has overreached in this area. And supporters are arguing it could create more political and civic excitement. And so now, the only thing holding us back from widespread gambling on Trump v. Harris is an emergency appeal by the feds. And here's the obvious risk. Elections are not games. A whole bunch of bets on them could, as the feds argue, undermine integrity and trust in democracy at a time when people are already worried about integrity and trust in democracy. So yeah, this is me placing my bet on the end of the world. Adriana, am I wrong? Tell me I'm wrong.
I actually think you're right, Tony, but we have someone who might say that you're wrong here with us. John Aristotle Phillips, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
You are the founder of the political analytics firm Aristotle and CEO of PredictIt, where people can place bets on the U.S. election. Is that right?
That's correct. They can do it legally.
How can they do it legally? Because this has all kind of been ensnared in this legal battle.
Well, as we said, it's in the courts right now.
Yeah.
But the courts have decisively said so far that Americans are allowed to do this on regulated sites.
I said, is this the dumbest thing a democracy has ever done to itself? And I mean it. Tell me it's not the dumbest thing ever.
To try to ban this?
No. Oh, that's well done. That's well done. Touche to you. No, to open up this particular floodgate. It hasn't particularly gone well for sports leagues, for example.
Well, let me explain. Betting on elections goes back to Andrew Jackson in the United States. If you wanted to know who was going to win an election, you would go to the steps of the New York Stock Exchange, where there was a lively market on election outcomes. Yeah. Wow. This goes way back. And what's interesting about this markets generally, whether it's elections or the cost of pork bellies, is markets are quite predictive of future events. If you want to know what the price of oil is going to be a year from now, you look at the stock market, you look at the commodities markets. And so the same applies when it comes to political events. So these markets serve a useful purpose, because political events impact the cost of food on the table and the rest of this. So people need to be able to hedge risk from political risk.
John, but it could be a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if I have one vote and I want X candidate to win, and I tell all my friends to get together, we're all going to pool our money so that X candidate wins, then it's not, our desire for our country, our future, our voice at play. We are voting because we want to make money off of it. Is nothing sacred anymore?
It can distort the process, right? I mean, like, if I bet on the Yankees to win the World Series, I don't play for the Yankees. I have no influence over that, but I do participate in our democracy, and I could change my vote based on the bet, as Adriana points out.
So these markets have been around for a long time. PredictIt's been around for 10 years. We're licensed by the federal government, which the courts found we have a license to operate these markets with our academic partners. There's not a scintilla of evidence that these markets influence the actual outcome, and that counts for something. Markets like this with an academic purpose have been around for 45 years in the United States. So there's no evidence of this. There's a lot of people often say, oh, this is going to, polling is a threat to democracy. Television commercials are a threat to democracy.
But John, what about in smaller?
It doesn't hold up.
For smaller elections, you have a smaller pool of voters, and you really can, you really can influence the outcome.
Right. So I think that's a very good point. I would also say there's another point. You don't want billionaires and trillionaires influencing the outcome of an election by coming into these markets. That's why you want these markets regulated. And that's really what this battle is about. It's not whether these markets are going to exist. It's whether they're going to be regulated in an orderly fashion.
Wow. They do need to be regulated. I would think we've got some political reporters that work for CBS. They might have inside information before the public.
Yeah.
When we see Ed O'Keefe driving that Lamborghini, we'll know he's been betting.
You probably can't buy a Lamborghini off of what he's going to win on the political markets anyway. So.
You never know.
You've almost convinced me. You have convinced me it's going to be legal.
Oh, gosh, I'm scared. John, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
Ahead on CBS Mornings Plus.